If you could change any choices you have ever made, would you? You can always make another choice and change the course of your success. Everyone has the potency to make inspired choices. Get ready to listen, share, and experience the creativity that is you. Now, here is the host of Inspired Choices radio show, Holographist coach, Christine McIver.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited for today's show, or am I? It's going to be an interesting one for sure. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that together we're creating this show, because each and every time you join the show, your energy actually contributes, and it's a major gift to myself and to all of our hosts. So before we get into tonight's show, and I'll just quickly tell you what tonight's show is called. It's called I Failed to Speak, an unusual topic for a radio show host. And if you know me and have only known me in the last few years, you may think that never happened. But I'm going to tell you all about this. So before we get into that, I do want to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do and create in the world. So this show is called Inspired Choices, as it's on the Inspired Choices Network. I have been inspired in my life in so many ways and love to be inspired, love to inspire others. And this, the name Inspired Choices actually came forth when I started my own business and really looking at what it was that I really knew my business wanted to be called, and what stirred and what spoke to me. So when I moved forward with my radio show, which was a few years later, it just seemed very logical to go with Inspired Choices as an area that I would speak from. And out of that, a few years after that, in 2017, the network was actually born. And when we looked at it, and I looked at it with team members, this is what the network wanted to be called. And I'm very humbled that that moment that I spent with myself looking in my small little living room at the time and looking around and imagining what it was that wanted to come through, the word that popped off the wall was the word inspired. And the thing that I've struggled with my whole life was choices. I always felt like I wanted to have someone else make the choices so I would make a right choice. So I knew that the thing that really got me excited and the thing that challenged me was going to be a beautiful combination, and here we are. So what I do in the world is I actually work with individuals and organizations and speak to groups about stepping forward into the life that you desire, having it right here, right now, making the choices in this very moment of what it is that you want to embody, at what it is that you want to have and be and do, and choosing it now and showing you the way that you can actually do that. So I do that one-on-one with individuals. I do one-on-one private coaching. I do group coaching. I also have a number of different programs that I put on and have put on in the past. You can go over to my personal website, inspiredchoices.ca, and you can check out all of my programs there. And, of course, you can check out the archives here on the Inspired Choices Network, where you will find well over 200 shows that I have done just on this platform alone. So that gives you a bit of an indication as to what I do in the world. And I always gift each and every person 30 minutes to see if we would be a right fit, to see if there's any questions that I can support you with or guide you with, and don't hesitate to contact me. If you choose not to work with me, I have no issues with that at all. I know that there is a right fit for everyone out there whenever they're looking for a partner, when they're looking for employees, when they're looking for a coach, whatever it is. There's someone that works and fits for you. So I would love to hear from you if you think that possibly this might be a fit. So let's jump into tonight's show. Tonight's show is called I Failed to Speak. And what's really interesting about this, my friends, is this show, I believe, was originally to be produced 2 weeks prior and then again last week. And there was just something in me that kept pushing it away and kept pushing it off, which is something that we often do when we have a knowing to step forward, and yet it's overwhelming, overloading. It sends us sometimes into a spin around what is actually going to come forth. And this is exactly what this show has been doing with me since I thought about it, and most definitely all day today. So it's quite fascinating to be in this space of speaking and looking at my life and everything that I have created and what's impacted and contributed to me not speaking, not moving forward, and moving forward. So it's a combination. It's an interesting combination that I'm going to be talking about tonight, and I would love to hear from you. If anything I'm saying to you speaks to you, please do not hesitate to contact us. You come over to the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com website, click on the chat room, or just call the numbers that you'll see on any of the pages. And come on over and you can call in. The U.S. and Canada, we have direct numbers. Everyone else, we have Skype, and you can join us in the chat room. So let's get into it. So I failed to speak. Can you imagine that I failed to speak? This show will be one of the most vulnerable shows I have done to date in my many years of radio and speaking. I'll share with you exactly what was stopping me from showing up truly as me and the price that I paid. And as I said, I hope you'll join me. This was originally to be aired on my birthday. So my birthday was, 2 weeks ago? I can't even remember. The dates are all over the place. Or maybe it was last week. Life is very, very quick. Yes, it was last week. It was originally supposed to be on my birthday, and then something was, again, as I was saying, pulling on me. So tonight, let's get into this. So I failed to speak. So my first memories are of me biting my teeth together to hold back my tongue. I was very, very young, but that's one of my very first memories. From such a precious miracle, I became a frightened child that grew into an insecure woman. The fear rose off of me like the pungent farmer's liquid manure that signaled we were in the country every spring in my rural hometown. Kids at school would tease me and push me around, especially after I had said something, quote unquote, stupid. Words held in for hours or days or weeks on end often bursted out of me with little grace. But here's the thing, my friends, I couldn't not speak. And yet I was petrified I would sound like an idiot. So this combination usually provided more material for others to laugh at me and tease me. It was a very challenging childhood. I was one of these children that had extreme joy. And I had beautiful, beautiful babies around me. Growing up, I was an aunt by the time I was just 7 years old. And my older siblings, so I'm the 10th of 11 children. And my older siblings several of them got married within a few months or years of each other, and then they all kind of started having babies at the same time. So I was blessed with having these beautiful babies around me, and oh, man, do I love babies. And with that, I had the opportunity to play with and take care of and nurture these beautiful, beautiful beings. So I had that joy in my life, and I loved, looking back now, I can see that I loved being with them so, so much because there wasn't that energy of thinking Aunt Christine was stupid. Or she was saying the wrong thing, or any kind of judgment. And there was a lot in my world. So these beautiful beings that I count as blessings in my world gave me the space to be me, at least when I was with them. There was so many times in my life when I didn't feel like that. I want you to know before I go on the reason that I'm doing this show and the reason that I'm sharing all of this and being extremely vulnerable. I have a knowing in me that has propelled me forward. That actually was one of the key factors in me choosing to do radio and then most especially choosing to create this network. And that is that I believe in every fiber of my being that each and every human being that chooses to come into body has something to contribute in the world, has something to say, that the way that they say it, that the way that they know to speak, someone else will hear it for the first time when that person speaks it. So there are people out there that will never hear what I have to say. It's not that they can't find me. That's not what I mean. I mean, they won't hear me even if they're connected to me because energetically we don't match. Have you ever walked into a room and you met eyes with someone, and I don't mean a lover and I don't mean not a lover, but have you ever just connected with someone and you just knew that you spoke the same language, that there was a instantaneous connection? Well, that's because you vibrationally are on the same wavelength. So this is one of the biggest reasons that I'm doing this show, because I really want people to get this about themselves. And I deeply desire for people to understand that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what occurred in your past. Your voice is a gift. So if you have a voice, or if you can communicate in any way, please speak up. And this is what this show is truly going to be all about. I'm going to be sharing some deep spaces in my life where it got really, really uncomfortable. And then I'm going to be sharing the gift in those creations, the gift in those really shitty times in my life. So this is not about, looking at me that I'm a victim, because I am not a victim. And if you know me, you will definitely know that's very, very strong within me. I am not a victim. Now, I've been in creation and created insanity with some people that, maybe at times I sounded like I was a victim to their contribution. But no, I am not a victim, and you will not hear that out of me, that I'm looking for your sympathy. What I'm really inviting you into is to dig into what's maybe stopping you from speaking. Where did you fail to speak? And moving forward, I hope that maybe I might pop into your mind, or this show might pop into your mind the next time you should feel like you shouldn't speak. So, on those teary notes, we're going to go for our first break. And when we get back, I'm going to dive in pretty deep. So, I think I'm going to go get some Kleenex during break. And when we get back, we'll see where we'll go. So, you're listening to the Inspired Choices radio show on the Inspired Choices Network with myself, Christine McIver, And tonight we're talking about I failed to speak. We'll be right back.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on our past experiences or what others believe. What would our lives be like if we made our choices based on what we desire for our futures? When you join Inspired Choices radio show with holographist coach Christine McIver, you'll be provoked to look at what is true and what you know but may not choose that requires your attention. Christine does not hold back and brings all her expertise during each and every show. Are you ready to create the life and the living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Inspired Choices Radio Show with holographist coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine@inspiredchoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Hope you're enjoying the replay. Ooh, there we go. Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I hope that you are enjoying tonight's show, and if you're not listening live, I hope you're enjoying the replay, and you can reach out to me if you have any questions at all about this. So, before we went for break, I was talking about the reasoning for this show and what this show really was asking of me. And now I'm going to dive into many of the places and spaces where I failed to speak. So I want to tell you what really set all of this experience in my life into motion, the places and spaces where I failed to speak. The biggest memory that I have, the first memory that I have that had me fail to speak was when I was very, very young. I think I was about 3 or 4 years old, and someone that I love very dearly looked at me one day when I was this exuberant, bubbly, jumping all over the world little girl. And he looked down at me, and I want you to understand that I'm not going to share who this person is in my life or their name, but I love this person very, very much. So he did not say this out of meanness or callous. It was just something that jumped out of his mouth. And he said to me, "Do you never stop speaking?" I guess he was probably frustrated and really didn't want to hear this loud little girl who was 3 years old going on and on and on. And it was that moment that I really stepped back and I really looked at I just held on to it. You know what I mean? I put it within myself, and it really had a huge, huge impact to have me not speak and really question that this person that I adored and I looked up to and I thought was, hung the moon. If he thought that I spoke too much, then I should probably, stop speaking so much. And I began to question my words. I began to question every place and space where I had this urge inside of me to speak, and it was like there was this, steel trap saying, wait, you better check on this, you better check on this. And so I started down this road of not speaking, of failing to really speak up. Another time that really impacted me and impacted my little body was when I was just about 3 years old. A friend of my brother's was babysitting myself and my younger brother, and I couldn't sleep, and I came down the stairs and I told this person that I couldn't sleep, and he said, "Oh, go get your pillow." And I went upstairs and I got my pillow and I came downstairs, and that's the last that I remember specifically of what occurred. But what I've known my whole life is I was violently sexually assaulted when I was 3. And I don't know for a fact how that impacted me, but I can imagine that it had me closed down, shut down. And I remember being 5 and waking up and running down the stairs. Everybody was sleeping, and running down the stairs and running around the dining room table screaming. And of course, everyone in the house jumped out of bed like, what is going on, and come running, and they didn't know what was wrong, and I couldn't communicate what was wrong, and I don't think my little 5-year-old self knew to say that man hurt me. And the second time that I actually woke up, ran down the stairs, running around the dining room table screaming, they took me to the hospital, and I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. And they're trying to figure out what was wrong with me because I had really bad stomach pains, and I didn't know what, whatever it was. And how much of being taken away from my family when I was in so much pain, how much did that actually impact me? Again, I think subconsciously sending the message, you cannot speak or we're going to take you away. So that was pretty tough. And things, things in people's lives, things in people's families, we all have stories of what went on in our families, and mine is no different. I want you to know that I love my family very much, and I love my parents very much, and they were amazing, and they weren't perfect. There's no parent that's perfect. There's no guide. Nobody actually hands you a guide when you're about to have a child and say, okay, well, you got to make sure you don't do this, and you got to make sure you do this. And I couldn't become the one that I am today without a major positive contribution from them, and also contributions that were not so wonderful. There was a lot of fighting in my home. There was a lot of sadness and anger and frustration and confusion and abuse and alcoholism, and there was so much. My father struggled very deeply with who he was and trying so hard to be an amazing man. I know that he didn't think he was. He was. He was amazing, and he tried so hard to be more than he was shown to be. And I do the same. I try to be more than I was shown to be. And I hope that my children will try to be more than they were shown to be. I think that's about the best that we can do. There were many, many people in my family growing up, and a lot of people have said to me, well, no wonder you didn't get to speak. I don't think it was that at all. I think it was a lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of uncertainty. And in the midst of all of that, there was so many times that I just wanted to scream out. But I swallowed that. Crying for help with my choices a lot of the time. And still, with some of these crazy, crazy choices, what I created was a lot more of chaos and a lot more of abuse in my life, and still, I failed to speak so many times. When horrific things happened, I would explode like a bomb and then come unglued from all the emotions. I would fall apart. But I really was like a pressure cooker, you know, all of the emotions and all of the knowing that was inside of me, wanting to break free, wanting to step forward, wanting to claim what I knew, and I just couldn't, and then eventually it would literally blow. And a lot of times when that would happen, it didn't come out very elegantly, and it wasn't often very kind to those around me. And then what would happen is I would go deeper into my shell. I would say, see, Christine, you don't know what to say. You really should just shut up. You're blowing your life up. People don't want to be around you. People don't love you when you're like this. Stop it. If you really want to be loved, be quiet. Just sit there and be a good little girl. And that's what would roll through my head. And yet, there was so much pain with not speaking. So I had this internal fight going on within me. I bought into everybody else's thoughts and opinions being more important than mine so often. It was absolutely insane. As I grew up, the sexual assaults continued with one person and then another person. And the whole time I stayed silent. I didn't speak up. I didn't stop. I would be frozen, which is not unusual for people. I understand that. But this is me looking at the totality of this. And when I got to, actually it was just after my 40th birthday, there was someone that was crossing the line with me, and when I spoke up, it destroyed relationships all around me. I wanted only to have it stop. I didn't want anyone else to know, and yet when I spoke, this person shared it with so many others, and it just created so much chaos. It's been 17 years, and it's still not resolved. It's still not understood. And that's hard. That's a really big thing for me to carry with me. And I know this is not my fault, and I know that me speaking was the right thing for me. And maybe there's someone that knows about this that is actually, it contributes to them, but it's still a very difficult experience to still have present in my world. You know, in all of these situations, I didn't want to hurt anyone. And I was scared of what they would say about me when I spoke up. And that was one of the biggest reasons that I didn't. I was afraid. I was still that little child that was afraid of what someone would say. So I kept silent. I failed to speak. There were so many times when I would move forward in my life and think, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy in this, and I wouldn't speak up. I would totally go within again and just keep it to myself and hope to goodness that this time what I was choosing would make me happy. You know, I wrote a book, I wrote a chapter in a book called Old Maid Be Damned, and if you're interested in hearing that chapter rather, you can go to my website and go to the store and you can get no cost. It's a gift. But in there you'll learn about my choices with choosing a relationship. And the first relationship that I chose to marry with, I chose that relationship out of many worries and fears about what people would say and think of me, and I failed to really speak up and call bullshit on what was going on with me and what was going on around me. I made the choice, I own it, but I know that today no person should be choosing marriage, certainly based on the worry about what other people would think. So when I was in relationship with my first husband, there was a great deal of drinking, alcoholism, and him choosing not to be concerned about paying bills, but just blowing money left, right, and center. And for quite a long time, I kept my mouth shut, because I didn't want the marriage to fall apart, and I just kept it within myself to try to keep things moving forward, again, worrying about what people would think. And at one point, he made a couple of choices, and it's a very long story, but he chose to strike me across the face. And it was at that moment that I picked up my 6-month-old and I walked out, and I chose to say no more. That was a very big choice on my part. I was a young woman of only 23 years old, and it was so difficult. But I knew that there was no damn way I was going to put up with that bullshit. And I certainly wasn't going to have my son grow up seeing a woman being struck. So I stepped out and I started to make some better choices for myself. I went back to school. I can remember I left on a Wednesday. On a Thursday, I rented a place. On the Friday, I moved out of my house into this apartment. On the Saturday, I sold my house. On the Monday, I bought a new car, and I enrolled in school. So that is really me. It's like, okay, get out of my way. And this is kind of a moment where I can see the real strength of me starting to explode with choosing. After school was complete 3 years later, I chose into relationship again. And I was even more determined now to keep that relationship from not falling apart. So I stayed in something that was much more abusive, much more impactful, and that was to be in a relationship with a man who chose emotional, psychological, and verbal abuse. That had an impact on myself and my 2 children as well, because I chose to stay there, and I chose not to speak in a way that would really contribute to me and to my children. I stayed in that relationship for 9 years, and finally, when my child came to me and said, "There's somebody on the phone," and I said, "The phone didn't ring," and was handed the phone, and they said, "Your child called the suicide hotline." That was the moment that I just knew that no matter what it was, I had to leave. And that began a really tough road of figuring out how to do this and how to move forward, but I did. During so many employment relationships, the men, the employers themselves, would be inappropriate to me, and I wouldn't say anything. I was afraid. I would have female coworkers, oftentimes people that had more seniority than me, be bullying. They would actually be verbally aggressive and pretty much threatening in the way that they would speak to me. And again, I failed to speak. I failed to step up and change that for myself. There was a couple of jobs where there were some pretty terrible things going on, and at moments when I did speak up and say something, I was threatened that I would lose my job if I didn't keep my mouth shut. And because I had a family to raise, I was a single mother at this point, I chose to not speak. I chose to be quiet because the threat was greater than what I felt was important to say. And by the way, I was wrong. Eventually, in most of these situations, two in particular that I can remember, eventually I was able to get the words out and speak up for myself and say, no more. No. And it felt good to say what I needed to say, but I wished now that I'd have said something sooner. The last corporate job that I actually had an employee who didn't like that I had the position I had. So I was her boss. I was the director of human resources. She had a university education and 1 year of college because she couldn't get a job with her university education. So she got the college job, and then I hired her. I interviewed a number of people, and she was just so dynamic, and I really felt a great match. And from, about 3 months in, she felt she shouldn't be doing the job that I hired her to do, that she should have more responsibilities and, and that she should have this and that and all the rest of it. And I said, it's going to come. It's going to come. And she felt that I was keeping her down and I was stopping her from growing. Actually, I was expecting her to do her job that she was getting paid for. Well, she chose to turn around and speak to colleagues and to my boss, to my superior, and all the while was backstabbing me. So things got very intense in that position, and I didn't quite understand, how the train got off the tracks. And I had my suspicions, but again, I failed to speak to what was going on. And again, worried that, I'd finally gotten a great job and I didn't want to screw this up. And through this process of all this, so much chaos, I had a breakdown. And I went off on sick leave, medical sick leave, and a couple of days later, a friend of mine that I was speaking to who had been fired 2 days after I had left said, yeah, we're in the same boat. We both got fired. And I said, no, I did not get fired. And he was told a week before I laughed that I was on the chopping block as soon as I completed some work. So what did I know? And thank you, thank you, body, for getting me out of there. Eventually, I had my say with what they did, and they certainly paid the price for the way that they treated me. There's been times as well with prospective clients and customers where I swallowed what I knew to be true and I didn't speak up because I was afraid that they wouldn't choose me. There's been times when people were hosts here on the network and they would mistreat me, or, walk away without completing their contractual agreements. And I really had no recourse, but I knew somewhere ahead of them choosing that it wasn't the right fit. But again, I was in fear about what they would choose, so I failed to speak up. There's been so many times, there's been so many places and spaces in my world where I am very cautious with what I say, where I really think about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it, and then what they might say, and I roll this around in my head, and I should have a headache 24/7. I'll just tell you that, because I am never stopping thinking about what if, what could happen, what might happen, what likely will happen, and the impact that it will have on my life, and that I will blow my life up once again. So you can see that this has been quite a roller coaster in my life, and it has been a difficult time going through the motions of all of this and reliving it right now and sharing it. But there's major gifts in all of this, and when we get back from our commercial break, I'm going to share those with you, and I'm going to share some of the things that you can be doing if even a little bit of this speaks to your experiences as well. So you're listening to the Inspired Choices radio show here on the Inspired Choices Network with myself, Christine Crying McIver. Tonight, we're talking about I Failed to Speak. We'll be right back.
Many of us make choices in our lives based on our past experiences or what others believe. What would our lives be like if we made our choices based on what we desire for our futures? When you join Inspired Choices radio show with holographist coach Christine McIver, you'll be provoked to look at what is true and what you know but may not choose that requires your attention. Christine does not hold back and brings all her expertise during each and every show. Are you ready to create the life and the living you truly desire? Listen for Inspired Choices radio show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you ready to have pleasure with your business? Yes, I said pleasure with your business. The Pleasure of Business a la carte will surprise you with topics like meet yourself in the boardroom, money, services, and you. Expand your visibility. The pleasure of communication. The pleasure of Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Christine McIver has so much pleasure with business and loves teaching all things business. Beginning a new business? Desiring to expand a current business? Or looking to resurrect a business that has been dormant? This program will get you fired up and bring more pleasure than you have ever imagined. Exhausted with your excuses for not creating a phenomenal business? Join now for all the pleasure with business. Pleasure of Business a la carte gives you total choice for what you desire and what your business requires. That's 24 weeks of different topics to choose from with weekly calls, audio and video recordings, and PDFs. This class will have you dive right in and use tools to create the business that has been speaking to you. Go to inspiredchoices.ca for full details or join the Facebook page Pleasure o Business a la carte. Now is the time for you and your business.
This is Inspired Choices Radio Show with holographist coach Christine McIver. To participate in the program, call in the U.S. 815-880-8255, Canada 613-800-8736, or Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to Christine at inspiredchoices.ca. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. It's been quite a show tonight. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about I failed to speak, or I've been sharing some incredibly vulnerable moments in my life and still apparently moving through them, which is all good. So what I really wanted to get to tonight, and I'm sorry that we only have a few minutes remaining, but this is really, really important, and I hope you will lean in and continue to listen. What is the gift in everything that I've created in my life? What is the gift that contributed to being who I am and who I am moving into being more and more every day? One of the biggest things I know is that through our challenges, we become the strength for those who will walk the same path we have walked. I know that my voice, you listening right now, will contribute to you, to someone out there, to support them to move forward. You see, I know we're all teachers and I know we're all leaders. We just maybe don't know who we're teaching or who we're leading for. And so, for me, I would have been okay in my life had all of these challenges not come forth. And I can see that in the people that I grew up with, people that were my peers. But you see, I was meant for something else. I was meant for something more than to be a housewife on a farm. Nothing wrong with being a housewife on a farm, so don't get mad at me. But this was not my path. My path was something different. And I would not have broken forward into the woman, the being, the leader that I am today had I not been forced to speak. You see, a lot of times that's exactly the catalyst that's required, is through some crazy, crazy life experiences we are broken wide open. Not that we are broken, but like the butterfly, we are released out of the cage so that we can really fly. You see, the butterfly is my symbol for my business. I actually have it as a tattoo on my body because it reminds me so much of how much I have broken forward through my containers that have held me back. But through all of that, I have become more and more and more of who I am. And I continue to choose that again and again and again. So, not all of the choices that I have made are bad, because you see, they actually contributed massively to who I am. One of the greatest things that this has actually created for me is for me to be willing to be vulnerable, for me to continue to lean in and choose to speak up in an effort to create the life that I desire. You see, when you've come through as much as I've come through, there is a turning point. And for each of us, it can show up, in its own way. But there was a turning point in my life where I just said, no more. No more will I not speak up. I was in after my marriage, my second marriage ended, which was a thank God moment in my life, I chose to pull myself out of relationships altogether. I literally said no more to men in my life. And it was 14 years of saying no. And I really thought that that was it, that this was going to be my lot in life, that was going to be the end of my relationship story. And it's not the end of my relationship story. But after choosing again to go into relationship, I was in a relationship for several years in which I was, again, so afraid of this person saying they didn't want to be with me that I kept my mouth shut. Even though I was incredibly sad, I was incredibly frustrated, I was incredibly lonely in what I was allowing. And it finally came to a pivotal moment of the choice that he made, that I said no. Absolutely no. Never again, no matter what, no. And the wonderful person that I have in my life today, that I'm incredibly grateful for, he would not recognize that woman, because that's not the woman I choose to be. I told him right from the very beginning that I will speak when I have something to say, and I will tell you when I am not happy. And what's different today is that as I continue to practice speaking, I'm able to deliver whatever it is that's bothering me, whatever it is that's tugging on me. I'm able to deliver it with kindness. I'm able to deliver it with graciousness and understanding and allowance for whatever anyone chooses. And that is one of the greatest gifts when you cultivate your voice and you continue, pardon me, to cultivate your voice. It does become easier and easier. Now, there are still moments of difficult conversation, but I now have the ability, the strength, the fortitude to know, to absolutely know, that I will move through it with grace, and I will move through it with honoring whoever it is I'm having the conversation with. Learning to speak, learning to say yes to me, sometimes means saying no to someone else. But above all of that, knowing that my voice is valuable in the world and that my voice makes a difference, I get to show other people that they too, whatever they're creating in their lives, their voice matters in the creation of their life. Thank you so very much for being with me today. Thank you for holding the space for me. I am incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. And if you are struggling or you know someone that's struggling in any of these areas I've shared tonight, it would be my honor to support you or support them. I'm not sure what next week's show will be, but I'm sure it will be another humdinger. Until then, my friends, please remember, you can always make another choice. Be kind to you. Until next time.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Inspired Choices Radio Show. Christine McIver will return next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, be willing to choose what you really desire. This is your life.